A round of UN-brokered Yemen peace talks set for January 14 has been delayed for at least a week. The news comes amid a growing feud between Tehran and Riyadh, which is increasingly looking eastward to nuclear-armed Pakistan. Ellie Wachenberg, diplomatic correspondent for the News Today, reports.
While the public standoff between Iran and Saudi Arabia continues, their many regional proxy wars intensify. On Tuesday, after the terror attack in central Istanbul, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan accused the Islamic Republic of waging sectarian wars as part of its attempt to strengthen its regional power.
Iran is trying to spur a dangerous process with its stance by turning sectarian differences into conflict. Iran is deliberately escalating tension with Saudi Arabia and Gulf countries as part of this strategy. We see that Iran using developments in some countries such as Syria, Iraq and Yemen to expand its sphere of influence.
And indeed, this head-to-head clash has a direct influence on the deteriorating regional crisis. The Yemen peace talks that were scheduled to begin 2 days from now on January 14 will not take place, according to a UN spokesperson who said that the date is no longer, quote, viable. The new target date for resumption of talks is now the 20th of January. Meanwhile, Riyadh is boosting its campaign for support among Muslim nations, and the latest recruit is the powerful and nuclear-armed Pakistan. After 2 visits by Saudi officials to Islamabad, first by Foreign Minister Abdul Jabbar and then by Defense Minister and Deputy Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the head of the Pakistani army, Raheel Sharif, reassured Riyadh that any territorial threat to the kingdom will draw a strong response from Pakistan. Yet this heavyweight battle is trapping Islamabad in the middle.
Both are very important and dear states to Pakistan. One is neighbor, the other is closest ally. But foreign policy should be based on national interest, not some parochial sectarian interest or ethnic interest or religion interest.
Pakistan, the second largest Muslim nation and sole nuclear power, has large populations of both Sunni and Shia Muslims. In order to avoid in-house sectarian tensions, it is likely to prefer not getting too involved in the clash of the titans.
Yes, and joining us right now to the conversation is Yitzhak Levanon, former Israeli ambassador. Good evening.
Good evening, Lucy.
Ambassador Levanon, thank you very much for joining us. Let's start talking about who are the countries who will be trapped in this, and we're seeing, of course, in the dispute between Iran and Saudi Arabia. And, of course, the first one is Yemen. Yemen waited for a long time to the ceasefire. Of course, the ceasefire, like in any other place in the Arab world or in the Middle East, didn't last for a long time until everything exploded. Who will be next in line?
Lucy, I think we cannot compare Yemen to any other situation. Maybe if you want to ask who will be next, I can say that Bahrain is a candidate because of its very big Shiite community. Actually, the Shiite community in Bahrain, who is controlled by the Sunnis, are a majority of Shiites. And already today, for example, we heard the Bahraini authorities saying that they dismantled a cell that was supposed to carry out terrorist attack in Bahrain, a cell of Hezbollah, supported and backed and orchestrated by Iran Revolutionary Guards. But I don't think we can compare for the moment Yemen to any other case, because last week there was some euphoria that there might be negotiations for a solution. In the last days after Saudi Arabia and Iran cutting their diplomatic relation, we saw that the pivot is the ground, and the situation on the ground and who is succeeding or not in the ground is determining and fixing what would be the fate of these negotiations that, as you mentioned in your introduction, were postponed for at least next week. And if you ask me, I don't see in the next future serious talk for a solution in Yemen.
So I think that the one who's right now on the phone with us, Nisma Al-Luzabi, human rights activist, is not happy to hear this. Aren't you, Nisma?
Yeah, I'm totally not happy. The situation on the ground is still the same. The fightings are still the same. The blockade on Taiz is still the same. And nothing has changed. Even everything is getting worse. And it looks like no one wants to come up with a solution for the Yemeni crisis.
So if you're saying that everything is still the same, did you feel any change towards the negotiation? Did you feel any change at the last few months, even during the ceasefire? Somebody came, somebody took care of you. Did you see any help on the streets?
Well, for the liberated areas, I talk about the south, Aden, Lahj, Abyan, and the liberated areas. The situation is somehow better, but it's fragile until this moment. The security is not that good, but at the northern areas, Taiz, Sana'a, and the situation is still the same. You know that these areas has been without electricity since March, and the prices of fuel, food in there is too expensive, and the people in there can barely live their days, so it's horrible.
You know, I'm trying to see from your point of view, when you're hearing the news, when you're reading the news that Saudi Arabia and Iran are in dispute, you understand that these are two big allies in the Middle East, in the region, playing this game. How do you see that as a citizen being trapped between two empires?
The relationship between Saudi Arabia and Iran has been in a sort of difficulties since the beginning of the Yemeni crisis. We all know that this is a war between Iran and their allies, Houthi militia, and the Saudi government with the Yemeni government. So now, after the diplomatic crisis between them, it looks like they won't come up with a solution. They only want to fight until one of them will win.
Yeah, and in the middle, you are suffering. Nisma Al-Uzaibi, thank you very much for this.